Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to the Working Trader, where we look at the Euro USD, coming up with trade ideas for the day, looking using market structure, supply and demand, liquidity, all that good stuff. Okay, so without wasting much time, let's dive into the charts. First off, we look at the news. So yesterday we had NFP. So NFP came out positive for the USD. So ordinarily you would assume that it means that the euro is supposed to decline, but for some reason the euro has been gaining strength against the USD. Kind of weird, but it's always the case. We only look at the news in order to show us where there is going to be a high likelihood of volatility in the market. We are not using the news to come up with trade ideas. Okay, we are not using the news to come up with trade ideas, just to see when there is likely going to be an injection of volume in the markets. Okay, so today is Friday. We do not have major US news, except flash PMI news. So this is relatively medium impact. It's of course it's a red fold news event, but in terms of the impact, it's relatively a medium impact compared to NFP and FOMC rate, those kind of news events. So let's take a look. Let's do a recap of yesterday on the charts. Let's see what happened. So looking at the daily, so this week essentially it has been declining. All right, price has been declining and declining and declining. Of course, we've been expecting, or we are expecting, that this daily internal weak low to be eliminated. Okay, but because we've been declining for so long, we were waiting for the news to kind of show us what direction the market is willing to go. Okay, so on the 4-hour, I had been hinting that this was the high probability area to take shots. Okay, to wait for price to come to reach this area for us to take shots. Right, so this POI over there, and then of course there is this POI which was low probability, right? And as you can see, obviously price punched through it. Okay, once, twice, and now 3 times. Okay, so this POI is not valid. Okay, it's not valid. But at the same time, we don't have any strong conviction that price wants to really continue bullish. Okay, but we do have this imbalance that needs to be filled. So that is a reason for price to continue bullish. Okay, so on the 1 hour, we were saying that we would be waiting for obviously for this choke and for this high to be taken. Okay, I think if we look at the 4-hour, that's the high that we were waiting to be taken. All right, which happened right there, so we do have a 4-hour chalk. So let me just mark that out. So we do have a 4-hour chalk. So our 4-hour, we have a change of character. Right there, which means our this could be 4-hour demand. All right, this 4-hour supply is no longer relevant because it's been used up. But see, the way price is pushing up is not convincing at the moment. You see, we have this demand, right, created, but it was already kind of used up, mitigated with obviously this is because of the news, right? Because of the news, price did push down, took out this low, but didn't close, and then we pushed back up, and then we've been slowly grinding, and then here at NFP we had a strong push up, but price couldn't sustain these high prices, and we've had a strong come down as well. And then since then we've kind of been slowly grinding up, and we don't have candle closes, significant candle closes really. So we have these small bodied candles, spinning tops, if you could call them. So we really don't have any clear structure right now, right? We really don't have any clear structure here. So it is possible, price could eventually break out and, continue to at least mitigate that 4-hour POI, which we're saying is a high probability one to look for shorts. Okay. Another reason to support that would be that we already have a break of structure. Okay, we already have a break of structure of this smaller internal, and so because of that break of structure, price needs to have some kind of pullback. Okay, so this could be the pullback and it might be finished. All right, I would reckon, to be safe, price needs to pull back to that area at least, before you start looking for shorts, unless price creates some other kind of structure, so right here, for any other structure to be valid, we actually need price needs to break this low. Price needs to break that low. So as it stands, nothing clear. You could be playing, counter trend to try and target somewhere around that area. Okay, to try and target somewhere around that area. So on the 1 hour, we had said that this trade idea was possible. Okay, it was a good one because let me see, let me do that. Let me make this big. Right, so this sell was still possible because for it to be high probability, we needed price to, so we have a chalk here, right, which makes this a strong high. So we needed price to come up, break this high, all right, and then mitigate the zone, and then come down from there. However, what happened first was price took out the week low right here. Alright, so price took out the week low, so this made this trade idea invalid, okay, because we had already fulfilled the objective. We had already taken the week low. Alright, so because the week low was already taken, price no longer has a reason to come back down. So it took the low and then extended the low even further, right, made a lower low, and then we had this high, which was then eliminated here. So even though we didn't have a close, right, so this still remained as our strong high, right, but this is a high that created a low, okay, and then this high was taken, that high was taken. So you could have viewed that as an inducement, okay. So obviously if you would have gone short here, then you were just going to be run over by price, okay. So this was the high probability trade, but it was only high probability if price had not taken the low first, okay. So because the week low was already taken, that means all the orders down here have been filled, right? So because these orders have been filled, it means that price no longer has reason to continue to come down, okay. So as you can see, price then came down, but then continued and then blasted through the zone. All right, so the zone was then invalidated, okay. So regardless, it was still a low probability trade, as I had mentioned. So the one that's better odds was waiting for price to reach the top here, okay. So coming on to today's analysis, pretty much there's not much difference, because we've been pushing down since Monday. Since Monday we've been making lower lows, lower lows, lower lows, and then yesterday we had this week and then push up. So it's highly likely that Friday will be a kind of a retrace, okay, kind of a retrace. All right, so it's highly likely that price will retrace and then somewhere in that region, or be the start of the pullback, maybe towards this supply at the top before price continues, okay. That's a possibility. Or this could be the start of a higher low, okay, being created for us to target this week. Because remember, from a swing perspective, right, the daily is bullish, okay. The daily is bullish, so we are already in discount, okay. We're already in discount, so this could be a higher low that's just been formed, so that we have another higher high, right, so that we break these highs, okay, and then maybe pull back and then break this high again, pull back, and then we start going, so that could be something that's taking place, right? We'll never know, but all we can do is we trade what we see on the charts, okay. We trade what we see on the charts and make decisions based on that. So it's all about probabilities. So like I said, this is a 4-hour demand. Not the best looking, not really convincing, but nonetheless it is the demand, and price right now is in the middle of the range, so it's in the middle of this demand and the supply, okay. So we just have to wait unless price creates another better looking structure. We may have to simply wait for longs. We may have to wait for longs from within this area. Okay, longs from within this area. Okay, so if we're to go long, this would be a better place to look for those longs. Okay, but remember, this is counter trend. Okay, this is counter trend, so that's 15, so that's about 17 pips, and then right, so okay, this is how prices, this is where we are. So this could be the trade idea for the day. It's a counter trend short, counter trend long. We have eliminated this supply. Okay, we still haven't closed above, so we don't have a break of structure as yet, right? But we have eliminated the supply, so price could drop somewhere, mitigate this extreme demand, and then continue bullish. So price could drop and then continue bullish, although I highly doubt that it will drop this far. Okay, if it's going to continue bullish, I suppose it might just drop a little bit, and then continue and continue. Okay, so I think for now, for today, this is probably the only trade idea that's available. Okay, and then obviously waiting at the extreme. Okay, now does it mean that we'll just sell the moment price reaches? Well, maybe. All right, but ideally you still want to see a high that makes a low. Okay, which means we have a strong high, and then we have that high taken, and then price starts to move in our direction sort of aggressively, and then comes back to take the new high that's been formed before price really starts going. So this would be the ideal scenario that would want to see. Okay, so anywhere on this leg, so anywhere on this leg coming up, okay, we would want to see that scenario. Okay, so that's the analysis for today. We'll catch you next week on Monday. So next week Monday, I may be doing the streams a little bit earlier because I have school runs. So I may be starting around 6:30 my time, so 6:30 UK. That's when I'll be roughly starting the stream. So it will still be 15-20 minutes, so that I have time to take my kids to school. Okay. So thank you for joining. This is the Working Trader. Have a lovely day, and see you on Monday.